Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions. My co-host Stacie here to talk about Earth Abides, Episode 6, Forever is Tomorrow is Today. That is quite the title.
Quite the title.
For the series finale of this series. The episode's description reads as follows. San Lupo fights for survival against the virus. Ish realizes the answers to humanity's future may not be in his books and finds Joey's secret project. All episodes were written by Todd Carmanacci, the showrunner also. The episode was directed by Stephen Campanelli, and this is his final effort on the series, and also happens to be the final episode of the series. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a Sport Freak podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please follow, and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to the channel. All right. This is the final episode of this series.
Yes.
And the final podcast for this year, because I'm pretty sure there's only a couple days left to this year.
Yeah.
So this is the final Corn Productions podcast for the year.
Wow.
And it's been a wild ride, that's for darn sure.
It's been a heck of a year for us.
Absolutely. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on how this series concluded?
Well, I definitely enjoyed some parts of this episode. Overall, though, I do feel like we got a really rushed ending. I would have loved to have spent a little more time kind of fleshing the story out a little bit, especially here at the end.
Well, I mean, that comes down to, like, perhaps there should have been more episodes.
Perhaps there should have been more episodes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think a lot of this is good. I think I would have liked to have had an expansion on some of these things for sure. But there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
How do you feel overall about this series?
I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to become like a big deal. You know, I don't think people are going to keep talking about it. I think people are going to watch it and kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
And part of that is, you know, just being a limited series. There's nothing, it's not like you have more to look forward to, so it's not like you're going to keep it like fresh in your mind.
Right.
But I definitely think it's worth watching. I enjoyed it. It was different than a lot of stuff that we usually watch.
I absolutely agree with that. I do think it has a limited staying power in the public consciousness, but overall, yeah, it was a quality, worthwhile watch for sure. I definitely recommend it. I mean, at this point, if you're watching this deep into the podcast, you're not really worried too much about my recommendation because you've probably already seen it. But nevertheless,
I would hope you've already seen it.
Yes.
If you're listening to us talk about the final episode.
Right. All right. So, any other thoughts before moving into it? Diving in?
So, one thing to note is that we get a cold open for the only time in this series.
That's right, yeah.
Every other series, we had a previously on, immediately followed by the opening credits, and then we get into the story. Mm-hmm. This episode, we have a whole, scene ahead of the credits.
Right.
An important scene, which I think could have been a whole episode on its own.
It could have, yeah.
So I thought that was just a little strange that they changed the whole format for this one episode.
Right.
Giving us, you know, that separation between that story and then the main meat of the episode.
You know what I noticed, which was very weird, is that the final two episodes were shorter than the rest of the series was, episode by episode length.
Were they?
Yeah, this one was like 45 minutes, whereas like the rest of them were almost an hour for most of them.
That is interesting because there's a lot in there. They definitely could have used the extra minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so diving in.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, so the episode begins still in year 20, and Jean is asking Heather to start from the beginning. And she is pretty literal with this, and she starts when, you know, she first met Raph when she was 6 years old.
Rafe,
wow.
I think it's the only time you've done it.
I know, that's
show.
craziness.
So yeah, we get a flashback of 6 and 7-year-old Heather and Rafe. Reprising those roles is Leah Bell McDonald and Eamon McBride. For just a moment, we get to see them.
Yep, and so we see how their story develops, their love story, where they went when they went on their adventures. They went looking for people, but it was empty with no people anywhere. They do eventually notice numbers 147225 with arrows pointing, and they try to find where this is pointing to, but they keep coming up empty. And they settle on one spot that they basically decide that they're going to stay here for a little bit before going home. But
and this is already quite far into their adventure.
Yeah.
So she said early on in this that they'd already broken their promise to come home by winter. So they just kind of kept at it. They were like, we can't go home yet.
Right. Yeah. Might as well keep
we haven't
going.
found anything yet.
Right.
So we're probably pretty deep into 3 years by this point. And they settle on a cliff.
Mm.
It doesn't look like a really safe place to camp to me.
Right.
Just like the nature of it all.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they picked there, but Heather ends up noticing a plant, which she actually recognizes as something that Molly could use.
Yeah, it's a magical healing plant. I didn't catch the name of it, but I'm sure there's some science behind that.
And at first I'm thinking, well, this is just some random plant that they encounter, but it actually ends up being important to the plot.
Yeah.
They end up encountering a strange-looking man who then ends up grabbing Rafe, and basically Rafe tries to get away from him. He ends up getting stabbed, and Heather, in anger, throws a blade at the man, killing him. And at first I was not thinking that this guy was of any significance whatsoever.
You didn't recognize him?
I did not. He looks very different.
It's been 3 years!
Yeah. And then basically after that, Rafe begs her to tell him that she's going to be okay, and she won't do it. She's
like, I'm not going to be okay.
Right, yeah. And then he dies. Heather ends up burying her.
Him.
The Jeep ends up breaking down, but after weeks, she got home.
Yeah, she spent weeks walking home after the Jeep broke down. Couldn't she have found another vehicle out there somewhere?
Maybe, but she seems to be content to just walk through the woods.
And she says Rafe walked with her the whole way he walked her home in spirit.
Yes, and then Jean, Heather, and Ezra all cry together. And then we have our credits leading into the old wonders of the world still standing, and the rest of the world not doing so well. Basically, you just see a broken down bridge with a car hanging off of it.
Yeah, we see ruins, ancient ruins and modern ruins.
Yes, that's basically what the world is now.
Yeah.
After the credits, Joey wakes up to find his sister laying next to him. Joey asks why he doesn't have a nickname, and she says that he does, and it's Jojo. Joey realizes that he thinks that his dad thinks he's gonna die. Heather argues against this, but Joey says Ish looks at him like he's already gone, like he's already died. Ish gets back looking extremely desperate. Heather says he's scaring her. He wants to give him his immunity. Heather doesn't think that'll work, and right now, Molly is making medicine, hopefully a cure.
Yeah, so last episode we saw Ish go to the hospital, getting supplies. We assume he's bringing home medicine, but he didn't bring home medicine. He brought home blood transfusion kits. His whole plan is to just give his blood to his son because he's immune.
Right.
That was never going to work. He's already sick.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Right.
Not to mention, he already kind of has your blood. He's your son. And we already know that even people who lived through it the first time are sick.
Right.
Corey is sick, and he was definitely around the first time. And at this point, other people are sick too. There's a bunch of people that are sick, not just the kids.
Right.
So, no, your immunity means nothing in this moment.
Right. But Ish says he has to save him. He has to save all of them. Heather says that's not his job, but he begs to differ. Meanwhile, Jean, in what I assume is Rafe's room, pours a drink and then drinks it.
Yeah, she takes a shot. And remember, she was very much, no, right. I'm not even taking one shot. It could kill me, is what she had said to Charlie. Like, she knows she's an alcoholic, and she has sworn off alcohol, and she was very adamant about that. But she takes a drink now. And she says, this is for Rafe.
Right. At first, it's like, I thought this is going to be the beginning of the end for her.
Yeah.
Like, she was going to start falling apart. But she pours another shot.
She pours a second shot.
Doesn't drink it.
Yeah.
Just leaves it on the his nightstand.
Like the dresser.
Yeah. And then leaves.
And she says, and that's for your sister, who's still with me.
Right.
And this was a beautiful scene.
Mm-hmm.
She gave herself a moment to grieve the loss of her son. And then she had the strength to leave it there.
Yes.
Because she acknowledges she still has a child who's alive that she needs to be there for.
Right.
Which is interesting to look at the way she handled that versus another character, how they're going to handle stuff this episode.
Right. So Oh yeah, okay, I got into that already. So the clinic, Ish brings Joey to the clinic. He is basically way overheated at this point. Molly tells him he needs an ice bath, which of course none of that. Why does he have to do what he does here? Couldn't you simulate an ice bath?
Sure, but maybe they don't have a lot of ice.
I guess so. But yeah, so he goes to Jorge and tells him he needs to borrow his faith, and he takes him to the cowboy pool. Basically, he's a non-believer, but Jorge is a believer.
Right,
so
and this is something we talked a lot about last episode,
Yes.
where Ish isn't religious, but that doesn't mean he doesn't believe in religion.
Right.
He's like, because Jorge's like, what are you bringing me along for? What do you need? Because
Right.
he's like, can I help you carry him? And Ish is like, no, I got it. He's like,
Right.
so why am I here? Well, you're here because you have faith. That's the only
Right.
reason you're here. I need you to pray for my son.
Right.
So yeah, the cowboy pool is basically like a bathtub-shaped wooden crate in the woods
Yeah.
that's full of rainwater. Is that
I mean, yeah, that's as
Okay.
good as description as I'm going to get out of it. But yeah. So yeah, he basically puts him in there. Joey lays in the water and asks his dad if he's flying. Ish says that he is. Molly and Heather, the cure seems to be working on most. Heather ends up talking to Corey outside, and he talks to her about the desperate person, and as they talk, it triggers something in Corey's memory, and he realizes that the person that killed Rafe and attacked Heather was in fact Silas.
right? So and Heather's like he doesn't tell her, right?
Right.
She just kind of leaves, and then Molly comes because
Right.
she didn't hear the conversation.
Yeah.
And this is another great little moment. We're getting these great little character moments.
Yes.
In this episode, and I love that
I did love
they're
this,
getting
yeah.
they're
Yeah.
getting a chance for these characters
Yeah.
to kind of do something, right, and to show us where they are with just these little scenes.
Yeah, so Corey asked my wife if she ever had a secret that she couldn't tell. She says, if the secret makes the world a better place, keep it. Otherwise, shout up in the rooftops. Now, I'm assuming this is about Silas.
Right. He's basically like, I know Silas
Is the one that killed
is the one
Rafe.
that killed Rafe.
Right.
But should I tell everybody? Is this going to help them or just make them feel worse?
And I think that it makes sense for him to keep it a secret.
Right. Because then everybody's going to feel guilty that they let him go.
Right.
Because if they didn't let him go, Rafe would still be alive. So it's their, it was that decision to just exile Silas
Right.
that led to Rafe dying.
Yeah.
And, they don't need to know that. Rafe is dead and Silas is dead.
Right.
So what good is it going to do to bring that up? Right? So he decides to keep it to himself.
And then then he says, "You're a good doctor." And she says, "Don't tell anyone," and laughs. And that plays beautifully off of the, I think the last episode, right?
no, it was episode 4.
Episode 4, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Because we kind of skipped over episode 5 in our minds. But yeah.
So yeah, the secret that she couldn't share was
Right.
the fact that she's not a doctor.
Right.
And the only person that we know she's told that to is Ish.
Right.
So when he's like, you had a secret you couldn't share, and she laughs, he's like, that's probably stupid. And she's like, nah, it's a great question. Like, yeah, I got a secret.
Right. And then that you're a good doctor, and then her oh, don't tell anyone is really, it plays beautifully off of that moment in episode 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. This is a beautiful scene. So Heather takes care of Joey, who's not doing any better. Everybody else seems to be improving, but Joey is not. Joey wakes up, says he's scared. He's talking to his dad. Joey asks, when he goes, how will he find them? And then he dies. And Ish reacts to this by driving angrily. He almost runs over Jorge. We see a funeral.
What he does when he drives is he goes to the sign. The sign from the end of episode 2.
Right.
That Emma had put their address up.
Yep.
And he finally eliminates the sign. He spray paints over it because at this point he does not want to encounter any more people, and he's going a little off the rails.
Right. Yeah, he goes to the library. He ends up destroying the place. What were you saying?
Just back to the funeral for a second. There were 4 graves. They didn't tell us who the other 3 people that died are.
Right.
Are they just unnamed bus people? I'm guessing, since we didn't make a big deal out of who else died.
Right. Yeah.
But they buried 4 people, one of which was Joey.
Yes. One of them could have been Charlie, but I don't know. I don't think
It's been 3 years.
And I don't think they actually dug a grave.
No, they did. They buried him at sea.
Right. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I'm assuming 4 people died from the virus.
Right.
We just don't know who the other 3 people were.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it was like any of their original community people, or we'd have noticed, right? They'd have made a bigger deal out of it.
Yeah.
It had to have been like all those people on the bus that were just background actors.
Well, I mean, it's basically been like 20 years at this point. Like, people died.
Sure.
Like, in this community, for sure.
But it looked like 4 fresh graves.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. And, yeah, it was probably some people that died recently from the virus. I wasn't thinking about that. But, yeah. Yeah. So, it would probably be some unnamed people that we don't know and don't care about, apparently.
I think it had to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he goes to the library. He wants to set the library on fire.
Right.
He's got a match lit. He's ready to burn. He's ready to burn the world down.
Mm-hmm. Emma comes basically to talk him down. And she's basically against rebuilding the old world anyway. So I don't think it even matters to her whether she blows up
She's
this library
saying,
or
like,
not.
you're trying, you're upset because, you're failing at rebuilding what we used to have, as a society. And she says, we were never going to rebuild the past.
Right.
But she says, we have other living children.
Mm-hmm.
Our friends have children.
Right.
Like, we need you. What are you doing? Stop acting crazy, basically, was the message.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to compare that to the scene with how Jean dealt with losing one of her children, but acknowledging she has another child that she has to be strong for.
Right.
And
Alex, Ish doesn't give a shit about it.
It's just not acknowledging, like, I need to be here for Heather and Alex.
Yes.
He's just so distraught about Joey dying
right.
that he's ready to burn the whole world down and not give a crap about any of the other survivors.
Right. Yeah. So basically, Jorge and Ish talk. Jorge asks him how he's doing. Ish asks, what does he do? Jorge says he's sorry that Joey is gone, but he is still here. And Ish goes and comforts his wife. She lost a lot, but Ish gave her the earth. Ish monologues about the morning sky, how he would see it as a scientist, but now sees it differently, as he sees the earth has actually healed in the absence of people. Ish tells the kids that he got it wrong. The old world had war and greed. Everyone was out there to get his. Ish wants to know, is that the world that you want to live in? Because it's not the world I want to live in. Ish wanted to recreate the old world, which wasn't a world at all. He likes things the way they are now, and Ish says that the kids don't need him as a teacher. Out there is the teacher. They have a blank canvas, and next time they aren't going to mess it all up.
Yeah, which is great and all, but also you do still need to kind of teach the kids some stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Don't just send them out in the world. That didn't go so great for Rafe.
Right. No. Year 21. Ish goes to Joey's room, and he looks through his things.
Yeah, he's like finally boxing up Joey's stuff.
A year later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it took him a while to get to this point where he's ready to
and I'm not criticizing.
deal with the loss of his son.
Yeah. He finds something he wrote, which was in one of Ish's old journals. It is a plan for a radio, a means to find more people. They were not made to be alone, Joey says, and Ish decides to build it. And everyone encourages him as they put it together. Ezra and Ish end up working together, which Ezra's like, this is usually a Jorge thing, so thank you for letting me be in on this. And Ish says it's because he wanted to talk to him. Ish wanted to say that he hated him when they first met. He didn't understand him. But he's not as bad as he used to be. And Ezra says to him, hey, you're not as bad as he used to be either. This is basically as close to a declaration of love as you're going to get.
They're making nice after all these years of being in this community together.
Mm-hmm.
And they even hug.
Yeah.
But then they agree not to tell anybody that happened.
Right, yes. This is just men being men, basically. Molly and Ish... Oh, actually, no, it's not Ish. It's Maureen and Alex, I think.
Yes. I was like, what seat are you in?
Right. Maureen ends up telling Alex that his dad adores him, that they all do, and that even though Joey understood how this all worked, it's Alex's hands putting them together in the first place. Ish.
Yeah, so they're working on the radio. So Ish and Ezra put up the radio tower antenna part, and Maureen and Alex are working on the actual radio. And now here's my question about this whole radio thing. Like, we're making a big deal about these are, like, Joey designed it. Maybe, you know, none of them understand how it is, but they're following the kids' designs, and they're building this radio. Why'd they have to do all that?
The technology is still out there.
It's out there. Go find a radio station.
Yeah.
There are radios out there.
Yeah.
There are radio towers out there. There are places you could get a signal.
Right.
Without having to literally design the technology by hand.
I'm not sure.
Like, even the episode description is like, they find Joey's secret project. And it's like, they're just building a radio. Like, go find a radio!
Right.
If you want to contact people with a radio, there are radios in the world.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But, so Ish is trying to get it to work. He's trying to call people, but he's getting no one.
Yes, he's trying all different random frequencies, and he's basically like, if I don't know who to call, it's not going to work.
Emma comes and finds him and basically tells him to come have fun. And the fun is a makeshift baseball game, basically lemon ball. They're playing.
He goes, I didn't know we even had a baseball anymore. And she's
Right.
like, yeah, we don't. They're using lemons and other fruits, oranges, I think they had.
Maybe they could just use rocks.
I mean,
it seem harder.
I was like, isn't that a waste of food?
Right.
Like, we have to grow all our food. Are we really growing it so we can smash it with a baseball bat? Do you have that much of an abundance of crops?
Right.
That you could just waste food that way?
No wonder Charlie wanted this place.
I mean, there had to have been something else not edible that they could have used as a ball.
Right. Or hell, just go and find some baseballs. Like, I'm sure they're still out there.
Right.
Same as a radio.
You have the entire everything that ever existed in the world.
Right.
Why do you not have stuff? That's what. And it's back to like where we were. Was it episode 3 when they're first like, looking for supplies and like all the supplies are gone? Where are they?
Right.
Where'd they go? There aren't any other people.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you don't have a ball. Have you looked in your neighbors' houses? Like,
I mean, I'm sure someone had a baseball somewhere.
some kind of ball you could use. Something round.
So they're all smack talking each other as they play lemon ball, and Emma manages to get a hit and gets all the way home because everybody sucks at this game. Heather wonders why there are so many numbers in this game, and Ish says that they were obsessed with numbers in the old world. And then Heather remembers the number that her and Rafe saw, and Ish figures out what that means.
Yeah, so he realizes that sounds like a radio frequency, and he's going to go try that. And, you know, as soon as we saw him trying different radio frequencies and we saw the numbers on the paper, I realized that that's what Heather's number was.
Right, yep.
I didn't pick it out when we saw Heather's numbers at the beginning of the episode.
Right.
But as soon as he's putting numbers in, I was like, oh, that's what her number's going to be.
Yep. So he plugs in the numbers and then starts making the phone call. The others join him in the room. And then finally they get a response from a woman. Everyone is shocked and happy. They are in Point Lobage or something along those lines.
The woman on the other line is from where is it? Point Lobo.
Lobo, okay.
It's a state park, and Ish says that's only 100 miles away. So
And?
they're in a state park 100 miles away, and Maureen asked them how many people there are, and the woman on the radio said they have 77 people in their community.
Oh.
So it's a much bigger community than San Lupo.
And apparently, Lobo means wolf in Spanish.
In Spanish, right.
Yes.
So yeah, Alex points out that Lobo is Spanish for wolf, just like Lupo is Italian for wolf. And Ish remembers Charlie's comment that only the wolf survives. Because we have 2 communities now named after wolves, and they're flourishing.
She asks, are they coming to them, or are they going to go the other way? And Ezra, it's interesting that this is Ezra that puts the brakes on, saying, hey, are we sure we want to do this? Maybe we should slow this down because we don't want to deal with another Charlie. And it's interesting that Ezra is the one making this argument. And then the woman gets back on the radio and is basically like, hey, look, I know what you guys are thinking. Like, we were hesitant to reach out as well, but then we realized that we kind of had to. And Ish responds that they have to do this. And then they all celebrate, and Ish ends up saying yes quietly to himself. And then we cut 50 years into the future.
Well, we fast forward to year 50,
year 50.
30 years in the future.
And he passes the gavel to Heather's oldest son, which means that she got over Rafe's death.
Yes, she must have found somebody in this new community.
You know, there's that moment where she was talking to Corey
Yeah.
they would get together, but then the conversation went in a totally
I
different
mean, we
direction.
don't know who Heather has
Right.
children with.
Right.
Again, we don't get much details here. It's very quick. And I wonder if the book fast forward that quickly. Like,
Right.
were there any more details in the book than we get in the show? But all we know is this is Heather's oldest. His name is Jack. And Ish says it's time.
Yep.
Time to pass it to him.
He says he has one last lesson. Men go and come, but the earth abides. And that we see
more cinematic images,
Yes,
like
of
we get in
animals
all of the intros, right? Each episode had a different intro, and these are more images like that. And it's the earth and animals and nature and earth abiding.
Yes. And that is where the
that
episode and series
That is
ends.
it.
Yeah.
So Jack is played by Timothy Stubbs. This is his only credit.
Mm.
And the voice on the radio is played by Amanda May. She was in an episode of A Million Little Things and 6 episodes of General Hospital.
All right.
Now, one thing I'm a little confused about, the woman on the radio says, are you going to come to us or should we come to you? Right? And that's when they're like, wait a minute, are we going to link up? And then they agree to link up and they're like, we'll figure that out. At the end, where Ish is with his grandson,
It looks like he's back in
it looks
San
like
Rafael.
their
Yeah.
community, right?
Yeah, it does.
So the group of 77 people came there instead of their 20-ish people going to the 70-something people.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that.
I
That
would have
is-
expected that they would have went to the larger community, not
Right.
the other way around.
Yeah, I maybe they just kind of like
Go back and forth.
yeah, which seems a little bit of like a waste of resources, but whatever. Yeah, I think there are some things I would have liked them to have clarified, especially that at the end there.
Yeah. Lily's playing with a toy, so there's some crinkling happening.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is not a flawless series for sure. It's definitely an enjoyable watch, definitely worthwhile watching. There's definitely a lot of worthwhile things commented on.
Yeah, I think I love the actors. I think everybody did a great job. I do think there are moments that were rushed.
Yes.
I think it could have benefited from being a full 10-episode run instead of 6. I'm almost certain that people are going to watch this last episode and say it was too rushed.
Right.
But here's the comment, I've been making to people who are complaining about it being a limited series. It could have been a movie.
It could have been.
I mean, most often, if you're turning a book into something, you're turning it into a movie.
Right.
And this would have been really hard to fit this in 2 hours.
Right.
Instead, we got like 5 hours, once you look at the 6 episodes.
Yeah. I would have
Like
liked
5.5 hours.
I definitely would have liked a little bit more, but I am grateful for what we did get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think given the limits of they're told you've got 6 episodes to do it in, I don't think they did a bad job.
No. Yeah.
I mean, again, I haven't read the book.
I'm gonna.
So I don't know, like, what did they cut out? What did they add? What did they change?
Right.
Maybe I wouldn't think they did a good job if I've read the book. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely on my. The next thing for me to do is to read the book and see, like
What the origin story is.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else to say?
I don't have anything else in my notes. Yeah, it was enjoyable. It was an enjoyable watch. It was a nice little break, from something that you have to, it's not a puzzle box, right.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You don't have
Yep.
to, sit here and theorize about what the heck is going on. You just kind of watch it. And it is like a movie. It's just like a really long movie. And this would actually probably be a really good binge to just watch all 6 episodes in a weekend.
Right. All right. We'd like to hear from you. What did you think of this episode? How do you feel like it concluded? What do you think of the series all in all? And what do you think of this podcast? Stacie can be reached at.
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.